My name is Carrie. I'm 29, a video game designer, and 5 minutes ago a stranger told me they'll break my brother's fingers unless I produce $300,000. Before I go on, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Have you ever been squeezed by family for the sake of the talented one? Subscribe, because you'll want to hear how this ends. The call lands at 11:47 p.m. I'm in my tiny home office, balancing loot tables and smoothing a difficulty spike, when my phone vibrates face down on a notepad that says patch notes. I swipe. 300,000 by Friday, a calm male voice says. Or Noah won't be able to hold a saxophone. For 2 seconds my brain tries to render this like a quest objective. Then the HUD in my head flashes game over. I begin. Figure it out, he says, almost polite. You're the smart one. Click. I stare at my budgeting app like the numbers might repopulate themselves: salary, stock vesting schedule, emergency fund, down payment savings. People think game designers are rolling in it. I'm well paid for my age, yes. But $300,000 in 48 hours is fantasy DLC, not real life. Noah is 31, a saxophonist with wrists like quicksilver and a tone that makes old men cry in the third row. In my parents' world he is a solar system, we are all predictable moons. The problem with orbits is that you can't choose them. Someone else calculates your path and calls it love. I text him anyway. Me, call me now. No response. The typing bubble appears, disappears, like a bad tell in a poker game. I grab my keys. If there's one thing I understand, it's systems. And right now the family system is about to crash the server. My parents' house smells like lemon polish and victory. The framed newspaper clipping about Noah's conservatory scholarship hangs in the hall. Mom's voice floats from the kitchen. Dad is reading at the island, glasses low on his nose, the picture of a man who believes the universe keeps receipts when it comes to prodigies. We have a problem, I say. Someone just demanded $300,000 and threatened to break Noah's fingers. Mom's hand goes to her mouth. Dad goes pale, and then furious. So, he snaps. You're the one with the real job. Fix it. He has a solo next week. Do you want to end his career? My salary is not a magic ATM, I say, evenly. And even if it were, feeding a fire doesn't put it out. How can you stand there and refuse to save your brother? Dad's voice climbs. Those hands, do you know what they're worth? I do. I also know what they've cost: late-night transfers, just until Friday loans that became just until never, preschool tuition paid from my account because my brother's genius couldn't be bothered to set an auto-pay. Mom starts to cry. Please don't be cruel, Carrie. Cruel? I've been the understudy who carries the show when the star forgets his lines. I am the quiet ledger that keeps the lights on. Here's the truth you learn designing games: if the system rewards bad behavior becomes the meta. I set my palms on the counter. Tomorrow morning, all of us sit down, Noah included, and we put real options on paper: treatment, a financial guardian, child support through the court. If he refuses, I walk away. Not because I don't love him. Because I do. Dad's chair scrapes tile. If you walk away, don't bother coming back. I look past him at the gleaming frame in the hall. Families call it devotion. Economists call it a sunk cost fallacy. They called me tonight for a reason. They called me because I'm the only one who always pays. We grew up under the same roof but not the same sky. Noah arrived first by 4 years, and with him came weather, applause in living rooms, teachers who leaned forward, neighbors who said gifted in the reverent way people say cathedral. My earliest memory is Mom polishing a frame while Dad read out loud the headline, "Local Prodigy Wins State Scholarship." The lemon oil stung my nose, and Noah's grin beamed down from the wall like a saint in stained glass. I wasn't unloved. I was useful. Quiet, self-loading, the kid who could be trusted with a library card and a hand-me-down laptop. When I showed Dad the first prototype I built, a clumsy side-scroller with a secret room you could only find if you broke the rules, he smiled kindly and said, "That's nice, honey. But Noah's audition is on Friday. Let's not distract him." The language in our house carved grooves into us. Noah had talent. I had a computer hobby. Noah had rehearsals. I had that job where you click. When Noah needed reads, master classes, flights, money appeared like good weather. When I needed tuition, I learned the FAFSA form by heart. At dinners, relatives asked about Noah's tone, Noah's tone, Noah's tone, as if sound itself had chosen our last name. When they remembered me, it was to marvel that I was so independent. Translation: we don't have to spend energy on you. It wasn't malicious. It was systemic. In our family economy, genius generated credit and criticism generated debt. Any truth that endangered the myth accrued interest. So I did what second children in solar systems do, I adapted. I built my own constellations. College on scholarships and side gigs. A job where I design invisible rules that make things feel fair. Paychecks that arrive on time, health insurance that covers dental, a 401k no one brags about on Facebook. Noah, meanwhile, learned a different physics. If he fell, a net appeared. If the net tore, someone sewed it overnight. If he forgot to say thank you, the universe said it for him. When he married Mira, I wanted to believe gravity could be gentle. Their daughter was born with a laugh like a bright symbol. For a while the framed photos on my parents' wall made sense again, a family, not a shrine. But myths are expensive to maintain. The polish has to come from somewhere. Eventually, someone pays. I thought I knew the cost. I didn't. The bill came due the night genius discovered poker. Addictions rarely kick the door in. They knock like a friend. For Noah it started on tour buses, tiny green felt mats laid over instrument cases, a friendly sit-and-go to kill time between soundcheck and downbeat. He'd text me photos from hotel rooms, a pile of chips, a grin, a whiskey glass sweating on the nightstand. Made rent in an hour lol. The jokes were charming until they became arithmetic. Poker bled into parleys. It's not gambling, Kerr. It's value. I'm just playing the odds. He started using words like overlay and expected value, a music theory for money. When I asked how much he was in for, he shrugged like numbers were rude. Meanwhile, Mira was building an actual life. She worked part-time so their daughter could nap in a real bed. She packed snacks for rehearsals, paid the boring bills, learned to hold her breath when Noah bounced a check and then fixed it with a tip gig. Their baby turned 4 with a cake shaped like a saxophone. The candles smoked. I remember thinking the frosting looked like a treble clef trying to hold its balance. The first time Noah asked me for help, it was small enough to feel harmless. Can you float me 300 till Friday? My agent messed up the wire. Friday came and went. New ask, new story. A client's check is late. The orchestra changed the per diem. The bank flagged my transfer. Always normal, always explainable, always just this once. I'm not naive. I build economies from scratch. I know how incentives teach people how to behave. But family turns designers into fools. Each time I wired a little, it kept everyone quiet, Noah, Mira, my parents, even the calendar my niece's preschool pinned to the fridge. Quiet feels like peace until silence becomes complicity. Mira stopped asking Noah for the money he promised. She asked me. She showed up on my landing with a grocery bag and an overdue notice. I hate this, she said, not crying. But the boots are $49, and the preschool late fee is $35, and Aaliyah needs both. So I paid for boots. Then preschool. Then the pediatrician after a weekend fever. None of it was glamorous. All of it was necessary. I told myself I was keeping a child warm, not a habit alive. My parents didn't see the late notices. They saw Noah's reviews. They shared clips with captions like "our son, our pride," and if I ever mentioned the other side, Mom would say, "He's under a lot of pressure, don't put negative energy on his career," as if debt could be hexed into behaving. The slope steepened so slowly I mistook momentum for progress. Noah took a small bridge loan at an obscene rate to cover a bad beat. Then a second to cover the first. He'd swear he was done and then text me from a bathroom stall during intermission, "Please. Just this once." They're in the lobby. "Who?" I asked. "Friends," he said. "Supporters. People with names like Dan who didn't bother with last names." Mira left him quietly. No slammed doors, no tossed boxes. She strapped her daughter into a car seat, set a folded list of monthly expenses on the counter, and said, "I will not raise our child to worship your gambling." Noah watched them go with a musician's expression, face still, hands moving. After the separation, the asks got larger and came with new edges. "Kerr, I'm good for it. 5,000 covers the whole thing and then I'm clean." I didn't have 5,000 lying around. And even if I had, clean is a word addicts rent for a day. I tried boundaries before I knew how to keep them. No cash, only bills. No transfers after 10 p.m. receipts or I won't. Every rule bent on impact. The night I said no, he tried someone else. The morning after, Mira texted a single photo, Aaliyah's two small boots next to a slush puddle. So I paid again. I told myself it was for the child. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Systems don't care about intentions, they respond to inputs. Then came the stories I didn't hear but could feel. Noah taking meetings he shouldn't, borrowing from men who don't send reminders, they send consequences. He stopped mentioning poker and started calling it making things right. He stopped saying help me and started saying fix it. I kept my head down and my spreadsheet updated. Emergency fund intact. Credit frozen. Two-factor on everything. I thought I was protected because I was careful. The guillotine wasn't the first late night or the last transfer. It was a question I never thought I'd have to consider. What if the next time Noah borrows, he doesn't borrow money? What if he borrows me? I didn't know yet that the next request wouldn't hit my account at all. It would hit my name. I didn't notice when I stopped being a sister and became a service. It looked harmless at first, tidy transfers with tidy reasons. I even tagged them in my budgeting app like they were normal life. Noah, reads and repairs, $120. Noah, rent shortfall, $450. Aaliyah, preschool fee, late, $35. Aaliyah, winter boots, $49. The DMs were always soft around the edges. Can you float me 300 till Friday? Agent messed up the wire, embarrassing. You're the only one I can trust, Kerr. Fridays came and went. New story, same hole. Mira stopped pretending Noah would catch up. She stood on my landing with an overdue notice and the kind of calm that comes after too much crying. If you won't pay, she said, eyes steady, then you should. You're the only one who shows up. So I showed up. I paid the bills that made a child's life less precarious. I told myself I was funding warmth, not a habit. Meanwhile, my parents crafted a museum out of denial. They posted Noah's reviews with captions like pride and asked me not to put negative energy on his career, as if debt could be shamed into solvency. Boundaries? I tried them like crash diets. No cash, only bills. Noah, great, just send it to my friend Dan, he'll handle the invoice. No transfers after 10 p.m. Noah, doors close at midnight, Kerr. You'd let your nephew freeze? He doesn't have a nephew. Receipts or I won't. Noah, I'm between phones. I'll send later. Later never came. Every rule bent on impact because I never let it break. That's the trick families play on themselves, we call it love when it's really interference. The amounts climbed the way water does, imperceptibly, until you're swimming. He stopped saying help me and started saying fix it. He stopped asking in words and started asking with other people, a text from a number I didn't know with a routing code, a man waiting outside the stage door who called me by name and smiled like a receipt. In meetings at work I designed sinks for currency that shouldn't loop forever. In my life I built the opposite, a perfect infinite faucet. Quiet, reliable, consequence-free. Then Mira knocked again, this time not for Aaliyah, but for herself. He's 3 months behind on support, she said. I can take him back to court, but that takes time. Winter doesn't. I wired what I could and sat in the dark after, watching the little bars march across my phone as if they were loading a better version of all of us. They weren't. Here's what I understand now. In any system, exploited paths widen. My number became a shortcut. My kindness, a script. When I didn't respond fast enough, Noah tried a different route. When that route slowed, someone new appeared with a friendlier smile and a firmer deadline. The night I finally said no, really no, the kind that doesn't come with an apology, Noah didn't argue. He said, got it, and added a heart. I wanted to believe that meant he'd heard me. It meant he'd moved on. The collector calls again at 2:03 a.m. Same steady voice, same performance. Clock's running, he says. By Friday. Don't make this messy. I let the silence sit until it feels expensive. Send the details, I say. No money moves without a recipient. A text lands, a generic payment link and a Zelle handle. The kind of thing people use when they think fear makes you sloppy. I open my banking app and type the handle without sending. If you've ever paid rent to a roommate, you know this trick. Before money leaves, the app flashes a name so you don't transfer to the wrong Sam. It's a tiny guardrail that has saved more lives than any sermon. The preview blinks up for half a second, long enough. D. Mercer. I say it out loud once, just to hear how it sounds when it's not hiding. Dan Mercer. Second chair tenor sax Noah's shadow at rehearsals. The guy who is always at the stage door before I am, smiling like a receipt. The friend who started meeting Noah to keep him focused, as if focus is contagious across smoke breaks. I don't send a cent. I take a screenshot. Then another of the text thread. Then a third of the call log with the timestamps. I am not building a case, I am building a memory I can't be argued out of later. The voice tries again, everything okay? I type back, need to confirm funds. Hold. Then I block the number. If he has more, he'll use them. Performers love an audience, scammers love a stage. I scroll my photos, boots I bought for Aaliyah, the preschool receipt, the just until Friday transfers that became just until never. Sometimes the past won't teach you unless you line it up and look. The pattern is a billboard. I was too close to read it. There's a temptation to make this complicated, hire a private investigator, spin up a sting, pretend I'm in a show where the credits will reward me for cleverness. I'm a designer, I know the seduction of mechanics. But simple is stronger. The shortest path from Dan to Noah is a call. I find Dan in my contacts. He gave me his number once in case Noah forgets his charger. Of course he did. He picks up on the second ring, too awake for the hour. Carrie, hey. Dan, I say evenly. I have your Zelle handle. You or someone using your account just asked me for $300,000 to keep Noah's fingers safe. Why is your name on the money? The beat that follows isn't confusion. It's calculation. He's not searching for truth, he's testing which lie will fit through the door. Look, it's not what it sounds like, he starts. Noah's got a situation with the bank, okay? It's not, like, mob stuff. He said you'd never help unless you understood the urgency, Anne. Stop, I say. We're done with theater. Silence. You can hear a person nod on the other end of the line if you've grown up in rooms full of taut applause. Dan's nod is small and ashamed. He asked you to scare me, I say. Yes, he whispers. For a bank loan. Yes. So the broken fingers? He thought, Dan exhales. He thought you'd move if you pictured the horn out of his hands. He kept saying, she'll cover me if she thinks I'm not safe. I told him it was messed up. He said family is family. Family is family. The sentence lands like a trick coin, heavy in the palm, worthless in the world. You're going to stop, I tell him. No more calls, no more numbers, no more acting. If you or anyone else contacts me again pretending to be a collector, I go to the orchestra and the police with your name attached. I'm not paying you. I'm not paying the bank. Tell Noah he can call me himself, once, to hear what help looks like from now on. Dan swallows. Carrie. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me, I say. Apologize to the woman who had to ask me for $49 for a pair of boots. I hang up. My hands are steady. It turns out that certainty doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like a floor finally holding. I sit at my desk and write 3 sentences on a sticky note, the way you do when you don't want fear writing them for you later. 1. I am not paying. Not $300,000. Not $300. Not again. 2. If threats continue, I report. Orchestra plus police, with names and screenshots. 3. If he wants help, he gets treatment and a financial guardian, and child support goes through the court. I stick the note on my monitor above the words patch notes. The irony makes me laugh, the game designer writing patch notes for a family system that kept exploiting the same bug. Before bed, I walk my apartment the way you do on nights that could tilt. I put the kettle on, then forget it, then remember halfway through brushing my teeth. The city hums outside like it's tuning to a pitch only brave people can hear. I am not brave. I'm just tired of being the quiet solution. I sleep like someone who finally put their phone on Do Not Disturb. Morning arrives with sun that doesn't care who the prodigy is. I shower, dress in the kind of clothes that don't apologize, and drive to my parents' house. The same lemon polish hit my nose when I opened their door at 12, at 15, at 22, at every family dinner where my chair never quite fit. Today it smells less like devotion and more like cover-up. I park. I breathe. I walk up the path past the hydrangeas my mother babies like a second child. I ring the bell even though I have a key, I need the sound to announce that the old way of entering is over. Dad opens the door expecting a solution. I step in with a decision. Then I look at the man who taught me that applause is a form of prayer and say my first sentence out loud. I'm not paying. We gather at the kitchen island the way some families gather at an altar. Mom is already smoothing a napkin that doesn't need smoothing. The framed article about Noah's scholarship watches from the wall like an icon that only accepts one kind of offering. Dad doesn't ask how I am. He asks, did you bring it? I brought the truth, I say, setting my phone on the counter. I open the screenshots slowly so no one can say later that they didn't understand, the text with the handle, the preview with D. Mercer, the missed calls from the number I blocked at 2 in the morning. Mom leans in. Who's? Dan Mercer, I say. Second chair tenor sax Noah's friend. The man who threatened to break Noah's fingers is Dan. At Noah's request. For a heartbeat, language leaves the room. My mother's hand drifts to her throat. My father stares, then looks reflexively toward the wall, as if the frame can argue with the glass inside it. That's impossible, Dad says at last, tone clicking into the gear he uses at donors' dinners. You must have misread. Scammers. I called Dan, I say. He admitted it. Noah is upside down with a line of credit. He told Dan I'd never help unless it sounded like violence. Mom's eyes fill so fast the future fogs. Noah would never. Noah already did, I answer, softer than I feel. He borrowed me this time. Not money. Me. Footsteps in the hall, the front door, a jacket flung over a chair. Noah arrives out of breath and out of rehearsed innocence. He smiles the way you smile when you've always been forgiven before the apology. Thank God. I was going to call. It got out of hand. I just need. You need to stop, I say. Sit. He doesn't. He paces, palms open, that musician's performance that has talked audiences into encores and parents into new reads since he was 14. It was just to get your attention, he says, eyes on our mother. We're family. She knows I'll pay it back. She always. Exactly, I say. I always. That's the problem. Dad finds his footing in outrage. Those hands, do you understand what they're worth to this family? To this city? You would let your brother's career. Those hands tried to pull $300,000 out of my future by using a threat that never existed, I say. I am finished paying for genius like it's a subscription. Noah turns to me with hurt he thinks is a weapon. You'll let me fall? You already fell, I say. Now you choose whether you climb or dig. I place a single sheet on the island, an intake appointment at a treatment program for performing artists, today at 4 p.m. I place a second, a simple one-page limited financial power of attorney that hands control of large expenditures to a third party for 12 months. I place a third, contact information for filing child support through the court so Mira never has to knock on my door with a bill and a brave face again. This is the only help I offer now, I say. Treatment. Guardianship. Court-ordered support. If you refuse any of it, we are done. No transfers. No cover stories. No holidays where I pretend your emergencies are weather and not choices. The room holds its breath the way a hall holds a note before it chooses to become music or noise. Mom whispers, Carrie, please. It's not a plea to pay. It's a plea to keep the family myth intact one more evening. The worst part of addiction is how it assigns roles and calls it love. Dad jabs a finger at the papers like they might give him a splinter. You don't ultimatum your brother in this house. This house is where ultimatums should have lived years ago, I say. If you enable him after today, you are not saving a son, you are choosing to lose a daughter. I won't stand in a room that treats my boundaries like bad manners. Noah laughs once, brittle. You'll run to the police? To my boss? You'd torch me with donors? If another collector calls me, I say, I go to the orchestra and the police with names and screenshots. Not because I want you punished. Because I am done being leveraged. I will not live on a stage you built out of my savings. He stares at the intake form like it's a sheet of music in the wrong key. I see the calculation begin, the old flowchart, cry/charm/rage/promise. I put my palm on the paper to keep it from blowing away in the wind of his excuses. I love you, I add, because it's true and because truth needs company. That's why I'm done funding you. Love without boundaries is just sponsorship. Noah blinks hard. What if I can't play the solo without all this noise? Then don't, I say. Noise isn't my department anymore. My father makes a sound like a door resisting its hinges. If you leave now, don't come back. I look at the frame. Local prodigy wins state scholarship. The lemon oil shines. For the first time it looks less like a promise and more like a receipt for a story we kept paying interest on. I'm not leaving, I say. I'm ending a contract I never signed. I slide the intake across the island to Noah. 4 p.m. address on top. If you're there, I will sit in the waiting room until they take you back. If you're not, I am very, very done. He doesn't touch it. Of course he doesn't. People starving for attention rarely reach for bread when they can still smell applause. I pick up my keys. Mom takes a step as if to catch me, then she stops, hands at her sides, a woman measuring the cost of the next 20 years. Her voice, when it comes, is so small and so brave I have to look away. Noah, she says, go. He doesn't answer. I walk to the door. At the threshold I turn once more, not for drama, for clarity. Do not use Dan again, I say. He's finished too. If either of you contacts me pretending to be anyone else, I won't negotiate. I'll forward it. Outside, the winter air feels like a truth serum. In the car, I write a single email to all three, short, factual, no daggers. Summary: I will not pay. If threats continue, I report to orchestra and police. Help on offer, treatment today at 4 p.m. Financial guardianship for 12 months, child support through court. If refused, no transfers, no cover stories, no shared holidays. Carrie. I send it and put my phone face down. The world doesn't end. The sun doesn't dim. My bank account doesn't hum like a hostage. For the first time in years, I feel rich in the only currency that ever mattered, agency. You want the coda? It's not a cliffhanger. It's dull, which is how consequences usually arrive. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah misses cues. He drifts. He loses the downbeat and finds it too late. The orchestra cites professional standards and lets him go politely, the way institutions love to perform mercy when what they mean is math. Dad calls it betrayal. Mom calls it a tragedy. I call it the invoice finally finding the right address. Revenge, if that's what you want to name this, didn't look like fire. It looked like no said once and then kept. It looked like a door I closed with both hands and didn't apologize for closing. If you've ever been the family wallet, drop a note below. Tell me the first boundary you kept and how loud the room got when you did.